All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Mentors Musings podcast. My name is Sara, and I'm joined by my mentor, Abraham. And our podcast is a way of bringing mentorship into the open. So, during today's episode, we are going to delve a little bit deeper into our discussion about career journeys. This time, instead of Abraham being in the spotlight, I will kind of take the helm and share a little bit about my career journey, and Abraham will have some questions for me. So let me go ahead and share the slide that I've prepared. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am a digital nurture specialist at Red Hat, and my current focus is on building digital marketing campaigns that meet contacts where they are. So digital campaigns encompass a few different things in my context. We do email, chatbot, and web campaigns. And really, our kind of recent focus has been on expanding to a more omni-channel approach. We are letting contacts lead their own digital journeys. And oftentimes these journeys are nonlinear. So maybe somebody will interact with the website and then they'll receive an email, but maybe they don't come back for a little while. And they start engaging on another channel, like with a chatbot on the redhat.com experience. So they're just different pathways that somebody can take when it comes to digital engagement. And we just seek to be there at all those different stages of the journey. Also, if they don't engage, we don't want to continue to bombard them with additional communication. So we just kind of wait until they might interact with Red Hat content again. And then at that point, we have the green flag to start re-engaging them and keeping the conversation going. Our campaigns are precise. So we communicate to contacts based on who they are and what they did, rather than sending random blast campaigns that nobody really likes to receive. So for example, one campaign could have multiple tracks for different groups, and each track will have unique messaging and content. And our marketing is also inbound. So our campaigns only target people who have opted in by taking a certain action, with the goals being to attract, engage, and delight them. So I'm also involved in associate communities at Red Hat, specifically the climate change community of practice, as well as the Red Hat Asian Network. And I think these communities tie in well to my passion, which is social entrepreneurship. And for those who are not as familiar with social entrepreneurship, basically it's using entrepreneurial principles to promote social change or to generate social change. A good example of this in the corporate world would be Patagonia, because they've centered ethical and environmental responsibility since its founding. It also supports grassroots environmental organizations. So that's just one example, but there are many out there. And just a little bit more about my background. Academically, I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a BA in media and journalism, specifically focusing on advertising and public relations. And then I also had a minor in entrepreneurship. For activities, I was actively involved in the student campaign team that brought an Asian American Center to campus, as well as TEDx UNC. And then my hobbies are powerlifting, riding roller coasters, and playing trivia. The latter two, riding roller coasters and playing trivia, have a lot to do with my family, because my family would always be taking us to amusement parks growing up. And then for trivia, we would always watch Jeopardy. And we still do, actually, just to try to see what we can answer before the Jeopardy competitors answer themselves. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Abraham, do you want to transition over into Q&A?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little off script now. So
Uh-huh.
the powerlifting thing, yeah, I've met you
Mm-hmm.
and I am intrigued. I didn't realize you like to do powerlifting. Now, I just like to lift weights because it's the easiest form of exercise for me, rather
Mm-hmm.
than cardio, although I try to do cardio. But
Sure.
I am trying to envision you lifting 600 pounds.
I mean, I would love to be able to lift 600. I mean, that's my total between the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. I'm around 600, but uh, 600 pounds at once is pretty difficult for like my frame and like body weight and everything. But that would be a dream though.
And do you compete?
Yeah, so I've like just yeah, kind of dabbled in competition over the like 2023. In 2024, I've yet to compete because I did like deal with a minor like lower back injury. But I would like to get back into it in the fall.
Very cool.
Thank
That's
you.
very cool. Uh, so your career is really just beginning when you
Hmm.
compare it to my career. So all of those hopes and dreams that I had early on, they look a lot different now. What were your career aspirations before college? And follow-on question, how did college change or strengthen those aspirations?
Sure. So my career aspirations before college look pretty different as compared to where I am now. I wanted to be a diplomat or just have some kind of involvement in international relations. As my favorite class was global politics, I just loved world travel, cultural immersion, and then just kind of getting involved in current events, world affairs, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I wanted to study international relations, and I also had an interest in the interdisciplinary studies major at UNC. Basically, this allows you to build your own course load. And what I wanted to do with that interdisciplinary major was explore the intersection of business and public service. I think that all kind of ties back to my passion for social entrepreneurship. Um, but it was difficult to get that off the ground because I was a little bit lost in terms of my course load. I didn't have a solid mentor at UNC yet. And a big part of doing that interdisciplinary studies major is having a mentor to guide you through that process. So I ended up giving another kind of path a try, taking the intro classes for media and journalism with one of my friends. And I fell in love with the digital storytelling class where we created a video as well as an infographic about a topic of interest. And I realized after taking that class that I wanted to do something that was more creative and less theoretical. And so that's when I ended up switching majors and I stuck with that one until the end. I still had a strong interest in social entrepreneurship. So that's how I ended up getting involved in the Asian American Center student campaign team, as well as the entrepreneurship program, which, yeah, was a really, I would say, formative part of my time at UNC as one of my biggest mentors was the um, director of the program, as well as the teacher of the capstone class for the minor. So, yeah, all of that cumulatively kind of led me to where I am in marketing.
That's very interesting. And the fact of the matter is, I know you. And so now this all makes sense. It just really makes sense. And so my encouragement is, like I said, you're early in your career. Sometimes you do things that are pathways, that are steps towards what you ultimately want to do. I can so see you doing something in social entrepreneurship at the international level. So I don't know. I'll be watching. I'm looking forward to it. Just you know, don't don't get stuck in the grind of I got to make money. I got to make because you do, but also the world probably needs what you would bring um, to some to the thing is this is what I'm thinking. The world needs what you would bring to it
Mhm.
because as we know, we talked about the our personality types, and while you are driven, you have this heart for people. I mean, like a real heart for people and the environment. And so I think the world could use that passion. And I think the uniqueness of that is that, and I know we're very off script, but I think the uniqueness of that is that sometimes people that have a passion for people don't really get things done. And the fact that you are driven to get things done and you care about people is going to be wildly successful for you, but it's also going to be successful for the causes that you are helping. So anyway, that was all for free. That was off script, but
Sure. No, you bring up really good points though, because there's so many different factors that can go into uh, a decision about like what path to take. What do I need to survive and thrive in this world? But then also, what does the world need? What am I good at? There's just all kinds of factors at play. So
and I think even to people that are listening to this, that you had a dream and you didn't get to do it for whatever reason, I don't think those things die unless we don't feed them. And so the fact that that Sarah, you did things. And by the way, your job doesn't have to be your own, doesn't have to be your passion. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but so many people find fulfillment outside of work, right? They volunteer, they do things that is really that thing that fuels them. And so there are lots of ways to do that, but the fact that you still have that passion, I think the world still needs that. Um, and from you, we are all unique, and what we bring to the world, they won't have it unless we bring it. And so all the stuff that's inside you right now, Sarah, the world needs it. Okay, moving on. That felt preachy, but
no worries. No, that's a really good point. I mean, just because I choose a career path that, deals with X and Y doesn't mean I can't still address, Z through other means.
yeah.
So I totally get what you're trying to say.
So Sarah, now that you've been in the workforce for a while, how has your current job and the things you learned along the way affected your career aspirations?
Sure. I've learned so much from my current job. I've been at Red Hat for a little over 3 years now. But I'll just try to consolidate that into a few key points. Um, One thing that I've learned as a marketer is that there are many times in this profession where we don't really know how something is going to perform before we actually do it. So I remember Abraham mentioning in a previous episode that we have to be comfortable with uncertainty and even with failure. So a lot of time as a marketer, I have to make educated decisions based on limited information. And so I would say my advice to others is to look for an organization that encourages failing safely or at least just some form of experimentation. That doesn't mean that you should look for a place that enables incompetence per se, but just that it enables you to take risks and try new things in order to better understand what's possible in the end. Um, Another thing, marketing is also a very social job. It helps to find people who will advocate and stand up for you. How you get others to become advocates for you. Firstly, producing high quality work. That's one big thing. But also participating in mentorship programs. That's a great way to meet people who can be your advocates. So,
Mhm.
just all kinds of, all kind of ties back into the importance of mentorship. Another thing is, I mentioned marketing being a very social profession. You're going to encounter an array of people with all kinds of personalities. And if you want those people to become your advocates, then you'll have to develop the emotional wherewithal to work with them. That doesn't mean, you kissing up to them or, just like bending to everyone else's will, but it's good to establish rapport by, asking people a bit about their lives, asking, how they're doing and, sharing a bit about yourself. Because at the end of the day, I think people want to feel like they know the people with whom they're working. So it's just important to understand that, yeah, your job is a job, but there's also a very like interpersonal, emotional component to it as well.
That's very insightful. I think so many times in the corporate world, the work world, that some people are reluctant to engage. And I'm not talking about, these natural um, personality types where we're a little more muted or less muted or whatever. Shy is might be a word that they would use, but there are people that you work with every day that you don't engage with, and I think sometimes we miss opportunities, um, professional opportunities for one. So when you engage with someone on a personal level, they tend to remember you, right? They remember, oh, you have 3 kids, or oh, you ran track in high school, or some of those. You don't have to fill out a resume for a top secret clearance with them. You don't have to give them everything. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying just human sharing. So what happens though is when those people have opportunities, the people they think of are the people that come to mind, right? And the people that tend to come to mind are the people that have some kind of rapport with you, some kind of connection, some kind of facts that have been shared. And so sometimes we miss professional opportunities, but other times we miss opportunities to just have wonderful friendship. I'm very appreciative that we met through a program. Back to what she said about mentoring, but now I am definitely an advocate for Sarah. So yeah, and I consider her a friend. I'm concerned about what happens in her life. And you just never know where connections can take you. So right now, I'm not a Fortune 500 CEO, but I might be tomorrow. I mean, who knows? And so that I take with me that influence that she has in my life, right? So if I'm looking for something, and here's the other thing about that, not just a marketer. So her job today is a marketer, but because I know her beyond her job, I know that social entrepreneurship is one of her passions. If I know of an opportunity in social entrepreneurship, guess who just pops in my mind? Yeah, of course, because I know her. And I think those are the kinds of things that we miss out on in our matriculation through corporate America, is this connected ability. Again, I'm not saying if you're not a talkative person, I'm not saying you have to change that. What I'm saying is we have to connect, and connecting is a human thing. There's no personality type that doesn't connect. So yeah, yeah, I like it. I like it. This has been really good, Sarah. I'm actually learning things about you, although I'm not surprised they match the profile.
Sure, sure. Okay, so yeah, I really appreciated that discussion that we had about my career journey. And now I kind of want to switch things up a little bit and transition into uh, just people's career journeys in a more general sense, and advice that you have, Abraham, for sort of emerging professionals. So, my question to you is, what advice would you give to people who are in the early stages of their careers, who are still figuring out what their strengths and ambitions are?
That's actually a good question. I think it goes back to purpose. I would say this that sometimes figuring out our strengths and ambitions can be a lifelong process. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because, there's no life is a journey. It's not a destination. So it's not like one day, and I say this about purpose a lot, because people, when I say it goes back to purpose, people tend to think of purpose as this point in time, as this destination that they're going to get to. But purpose is a journey. And an example of it, very crude example of it, is take your family purpose, or even your family title, and we'll call that your purpose. So when you're born, you are someone's child. And you could be someone's brother. You're someone's grandchild, right? So that's kind of the area of purpose you live in. You grow up, and then one day you may become someone's husband. Okay, the journey, you didn't change. You didn't get a superpower. You just started functioning in a different role, and it was a part of your journey. So one day you become a grandfather, and so forth and so on. And so with that idea of purpose, let's take that idea back to figuring out our strengths and our ambitions. So we are born with kind of a set of natural things that we can do, but we can make those things better, whether athletically or some physical attribute, or the way we think about ideas, or the way we process information. But we can, if we're already, at some level of goodness, if we could apply some number to that, we can make that number better by being focused and practicing. We practice makes us better. Figuring out those strengths is some combination of what it is that I do well, and you figure out what you do well by feedback, by achievement. People tell you, oh man, you can really bake, or you can really speak, right? And so that feedback helps you understand that, hey, maybe I'm good at this thing. And so now I can say, I'm good at this thing. And now how do I get better? And some of this is this idea that's in the book, Good to Great, right? How do I go from being good to great? How do I take my natural gifts and make those gifts great? You know, so figuring those things out, just kind of in general, has to do with the cues that you take in, and just kind of understanding that there are things that you're good at. I think a part of this journey as well, Sarah, is, and those that are listening, is being honest with yourself. So just like you can be honest with what things you're good at, being honest with what things you're not so good at, right? I think, I don't even know how many sessions into our mentoring, I was like, Sarah, I am not a details person. That's just not going to happen, right? I don't even want to be a details person, but I know details are important, right? I can not be good at something and it still be important. But then I understand those things that I'm not good at. How do I bring in a support system? And so, perfect example of that is this podcast. I've had the idea. I'm more the visionary type. I've had the idea for a long time, but being able to connect with someone who, for them, the details is life, right? So for Sarah, details are life. For me, they are death, right? But when you pair us together, we got visionary taken care of, which is big picture, and we also have details taken care of. Now that doesn't mean that Sarah's not a big picture person. I'm just saying that, as you're discovering these things, a part of that discovery is being honest about what your weaknesses are too. And then as it relates to your ambitions, um, ambitions are kind of like dreams. I mean, I don't want to squelch anyone's ambition. I would say you're more likely to be successful about something that you're passionate about. And so as you're being ambitious, figure out those things that you don't have to create passion for. So there should be certain things that motivate you, where you don't have to have a whole cheerleader squad come over and keep you motivated. You, you wake up and you're motivated. That doesn't mean some mornings you wake up and you're not motivated, but you tend to be passionate about that. And I think that goes a long way in helping to figure out those ambitions, is searching for passion. And by the way, ambition, passion, purpose, strengths, all of those are in the same family. They're interconnected. As you're figuring out your passions, you're probably going to see some of your strengths show up. Those are probably going to be some things that you are ambitious about. And those things are typically all connected to purpose. And by the way, purpose is for this season, right? My purpose this year, this month, this 5-year period, whatever, this is what I do. But at some point, that purpose might shift a little. Be comfortable with that and always be searching for that. Was that too long-winded, Sarah?
No, not at all. I really appreciate what you said about purpose being this fluid thing that can change over time. It might be something that you have always been aspiring toward, or it could be something that, kind of comes to you by surprise. Um, and I think that ties in, really well with one of my college roommates, because she came in wanting to take a more traditional like journalism route, and then she ended up like picking up a camera our first year, and I just saw like as the year progressed, like more and more camera equipment, like just invading, not invading, but like just taking up her side of the room, and I just saw her discover that passion, pretty, I guess, relatively later in life, right? Not when like, not when somebody's like a child, or I guess high school is also like a formative time where a lot of people figure out, what they're interested in. But yeah, like, to be like kind of pushing 20 at a point, and then finding what you're like really, really wanting to do with the rest of your life. I just thought that was a really cool thing to witness firsthand. Um, and this one more thing is, I also think it's cool how you mentioned that purpose can sort of be shaped or influenced by your interactions with the people around you. So it's not just this thing that you determine by yourself in a bubble. It's something that
Yeah.
can be influenced by, the people around you, and how you interact with them. So yeah, very cool discussion.
Yeah, it's all discovery. It's discovery. Yeah, and
Mhm.
and in fact, I think it's very healthy. Um, you tend to do a lot of that in those 20s and 30s, but discovery can happen at any point.
Mhm.
It means we're alive, right? So yeah,
Sure.
good stuff.
Yes. Okay. So speaking of change, how do you know when it's time to make a transition in your career? And what are some of the things that you consider when deciding between a people management versus an individual contributor path?
Yeah, that's another good question. So first of all, let me say I don't think there's a single indicator for knowing that it's time for transition. Like there's no secret button or alarm that goes off. However, there could be an alarm that goes off, right? I don't know what that is. It could be discomfort with the people that you're working with. And by the way, someone said this, and I wish I knew who to attribute it to, but they said that people don't leave jobs, they leave people. And what they meant by this is typically you could do a job, right? If it was just, even spreadsheets or something, sometimes there are jobs that we absolutely can't do. And of course, we try to find something else. But most of the time, what affects us the most is our environment, our teams, our managers, the climate of the company, the culture of the company. So all of that is people related, right? And so many times we get to a point with whatever situation we're in that it becomes untenable. And in those cases, that goes back to that alarm going off when you said, nope, I can't do this anymore. So sometimes you leave people. Other things are getting bored. The job is no longer a challenge. You've mastered the job. Some people like that and they stay there until retirement because it is low effort. Um, I have nothing to say about that. But what I will say is there, you know, uh, life is wholesome when you seek out new challenges. And then there are people who I don't even have to tell that. Once they master the job, they get bored. They're like, I got to find something else to do. I'm doing this in my sleep, literally. Um, Sometimes you realize that a job um, is not for you. And so these are the kinds of things that I would say people they become an indicator for that it's time to go, right? And a lot of it I believe is around people. um, some of it is around the job you do. The other thing is you can see that a particular industry is a dead end, right? So an example of that is the newspaper industry. Now, absolutely, there are still newspapers, and there probably will be newspapers for some time, but that industry looks entirely different now because of digital media. Everything is online and it's digital, and so sometimes you need to be watching your industry to make sure that it's not a dead end industry. Um, and then I would say to people that are looking to transition, don't be afraid. One of the biggest reasons not to transition is fear, right? Whether it's I'm in my comfort zone and I don't want to take a risk, or I don't know what's out there, or any of those things, I would say don't be afraid. Don't let fear be a deterrent for you taking on a new position, for you taking a stretch role, for you kind of exploring what's out there. And there are ways to do that that are low risk, right? Whether it's volunteering to do something, whether it's checking with a department and your manager, and there being spare time for you to try out something in another organization. And Red Hat actually has programs for this where people can try out jobs in Red Hat, which I think is pretty cool for a company. But my point is transition is natural. There's a saying that says there's nothing constant but change. And I think that's so true. And sometimes we get caught up and we lock ourselves in because of fear and other things. And this actually goes back to when we talked about purpose and when we talked about, what things I want to do. Sometimes we lock ourselves into an identity. Like we say, I have to be a nurse, or I'm a nurse and I'll always be a nurse. And we've locked ourselves into something that may not be what we need to be for the rest of our lives, right? We lose that flexibility to explore other options, and we've locked ourselves in. And typically this happens first in our mind, right? It happens in our way of thinking, where we lock ourselves into this role or to this identity, and that's the only thing we can be. That's the only thing we can ever be. And I think sometimes we miss out on a wealth of opportunity by doing that. So that was a long way around, as always, Sara. So let me be quiet and get out of your hair here.
Yeah, I love what you said about just not locking yourselves into a certain path, because I think recently in my own journey I've just been more so oriented toward climbing the ladder and just continue to like ascend vertically in my current path. But I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe there's going to be another opportunity that comes along one day that's surprising or unrelated to what I'm currently doing. So I think just being open to all the opportunities that could arise in your life is important. So
to that point real quick, Sara, I
Mhm.
think one of the things we do sometimes, we do both ends of this spectrum. Sometimes we're more confident than we need to be, but sometimes we're less confident than we need to be. And we don't realize the spectrum of talent that we have in us. We are, for most people, this is not every person, but most people are not what they call a one-trick pony. And what that means is you only do one thing well. Some of us do multiple things well. Some people are good at things that they don't even like, right? They're not even passionate about it, but they're good at it. And I think, to your point, Sara, and this goes back to even whether I should be an individual contributor or a manager. Um, I think I think you weigh that out. I think you you think about what it is you want to do. So for management, why do I want to be a manager? I think if you want to affect the lives of people in a positive way, I think leadership is a way to go. Sara, I think you would be a great leader. I already know you're a great individual contributor. But even once you become a manager, don't lock yourself into that. Like, I'm a manager, I'll always be a manager. I don't know how to do anything else. No, 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 no. maybe management was for a time, and now you can take that experience in leadership and do something as an individual contributor or as an entrepreneur. I mean, you just, I know it sounds like I am all over the place, but what I'm talking about here is flexibility. That is what I'm actually talking about. I'm not saying don't have a plan and follow it to completion. What I am saying is don't be locked into something, because what if you're on the wrong path?
Sure, sure. Well, this is all really, really great discussion. Thank you, Abraham, for your advice, like with regard to my journey as well as the journeys of other emerging professionals. I just want to thank everybody also for listening and tuning in as usual. Feel free to check out other episodes and upcoming ones on Spotify as well as YouTube. So we'll be sure to share all of that over LinkedIn as well. Yeah, thank you, everybody, and everybody take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.